What's up YouTube? Daniel Carter at Afro Herpkeeper here. Today we're jumping into the new year with a setup video for my largest new addition, an adult male African bullfrog. Going along with the spirit of the new year, I have a brand new intro and outro sequence that I'm excited to show off. So without any further ado, let's get started. My life is a bit of a mess, but I like it that way. Between juggling school, work, dozens of animals, and a constant drive to explore, things can get pretty hectic. But one thing always stays the same: a burning passion for wildlife and a desire to preserve the biodiversity of our world through public education, conservation, and animal care. My name is Daniel Carter, and you're watching Afro Herpkeeper. So, this big fatty is, as I said, an African bullfrog, also commonly known as a pixie frog. Why are they called a pixie frog? It has something to do with their scientific name. But this big guy is an adult male. As I said, he's about 4 years old, and right now he's feeding on Madagascar giant hissing cockroaches and small frozen thawed mice. As you can see, he's a big boy. He's shedding his skin right now, but he still looks like an overgrown avocado. He is a little bit fidgety, so I'm going to let you guys get a very nice close look at him while he's out of the water. He's got some really gorgeous eyes on him as well. And we're going to set him back in his tank. Like a bulldog, really. So he spends most of his time in the water here, but not all of them will, which is why he has a land area as well. In this video, we're going to be going over primarily how to convert a 40-gallon breeder tank into this half-land, half-water enclosure. We're going to be adding this divider, we're going to be talking about substrate, we're going to be talking about filtration. But first things first, we need to talk about the materials needed to install our divider. So here in front of me, I have a pretty simple array of 4 different items. We have an aquarium-safe all-purpose silicone sealant. We have a pane of glass that's been cut down to the right size and shape to form our divider. We have 2 bricks, which are just going to hold our divider in place. And last but not least, we just have a bucket of the substrate we're going to use in the aquatic section of the tank. So this is not the only kind of sealant you can buy. You can buy any 100% silicone sealant for this job. You just need to make sure that it says aquarium safe. As for the pane of glass, it's just something I bought at Home Depot, cut it down to size with a glass cutter, and went from there. This substrate mix actually came with the frog when I went to pick it up. As far as I can tell, it's just crushed coral sand and some black river rocks. This will be our aquatic substrate, and our terrestrial substrate will be shown later in the video. It should also be noted that this aquarium is a 40-gallon breeder-style tank. It's about 3 feet long and 18 inches wide. So once we have all of our materials, our first step is going to be actually positioning the glass in the place where we want it to be. I'm putting it as close to the center of the aquarium as I can, and giving it about a 45-degree slope just so that the frog doesn't have any trouble transitioning from water to land. Once we have the glass divider where we want it, we're going to go about the process of sealing it in place using our aquarium-safe silicone. Now, this is a pretty long and relatively messy process, so it's recommended that you wear gloves, and if you get any of this sealant on your hands, you should go wash it off immediately. Unfortunately for me, the tube exploded about halfway through the project. It got all over my hands, and I had to deal with that for about the next 12 hours. Now, as this pane of glass is meant to be a land-water divider, we need to make sure that the seal we put in place is watertight. I'm covering every edge of the glass a few times just to be safe. Alright, so it's been about 24 hours since I applied this silicone, so it's not yet safe to be used with the animal, but it is dried, which means that I can test and see if it holds water. As far as I can tell, there are no gaps in the silicone, no leaks, no water's gotten over to the left side yet, and I am pretty happy about that. I think this looks really good so far. Alright, so I turned off the hose about a ½ inch from the lip of the piece of glass because that's where our water is going to be in the completed tank, and as you can see, we have absolutely no leaks, which means this is good to go in another 24 hours. So about 48 hours since we started this whole project, our silicone has dried and cured, and our tank is ready to be decorated. So what I've done in the meantime is to bring the tank indoors, set it on my dresser, which will be where it stays, and play around a bit with the options we have for our filtration. So the pump that I received with this frog is a Pinplax Cascade filter, which is capable of cycling about 1,000 gallons of water every hour. This is a little bit overkill. You don't necessarily need a pump this size for your frog, but since I'm dealing with such a large animal with such delicate skin that produces such large waste, I wanted to get something that would keep the water crystal clear. So what I've done here is to put a sponge on the intake valve, which will keep sand and other particulate from going into the filter itself. And on the outtake valve, I've stuffed a piece of cork bark over the tubing. This disguises it somewhat, makes it look a little more aesthetically pleasing, and it should prevent our frog from chowing down on any of the filtration equipment. So now that our tank has been set up and placed in its final location, we can deal with some of the heavier material going in it. On the aquatic side of the tank, as I said, we are putting a variety of crushed coral sand. You can use many different substrates or none at all with your pixie frog, but as I said, this is what came with the frog, this is what he's been living with for the last 4 years, and I think it looks quite aesthetically pleasing. Now, it would not be great if any of this sand or any of these dark river stones ended up in the frog's digestive system, but we can prevent that by feeding him carefully with tongs or by dangling his food in front of him. So here I'm just spreading the sand around where we want it, making a nice flat, even layer on the bottom of the tank. And here I'm placing the rocks mostly in the corners. This looks the best, it helps block the filtration a bit, and it should keep them out of the way of the frog for the most part. He is very large and very heavy, so he's definitely going to be moving things around, but if we can keep them out of his way, that's probably for the best. At this point, our aquatic section is fully furnished and ready for water, so we are going to be pumping in about 5 gallons of fresh spring water. If all you have is tap water and you're connected to a city water system, you're going to want to get some sort of product like ZooMed's ReptiSafe to treat the tap water. There are chemicals like chlorine, fluorine, all sorts of different things in your water that can harm delicate amphibians. So you need to make sure you know what's in your water before it goes in the tank. Here you can see our frog looking very upset in his temporary travel tub. He's been in here for about 24 hours, so I don't blame him. However, he is enjoying the substrate mix that we've picked out for him. This is a mixture of coconut coir, peat moss, and organic topsoil. We have, I think, about 4 gallons of this mixture, and all of it is going into the land area. Now that we've included both of our substrates and filled the tank with water, we've really covered all the essentials. At least as adults, these frogs don't need much in the way of hiding places or vegetation. As babies and juveniles, however, that is definitely not the case. Up until they really get up there in size, they are still very delicate amphibious creatures. Even the giant ones, like I have, can be killed overnight by a sudden decrease in water quality. So as we finish up, here's the tank right after it's been finished, and here's the tank 2 weeks later. You'll notice that I added a large golden pothos in the back right corner. I'm hopeful that that will grow out, spread, and soon encompass most of the land area. Once that gets its roots in there, there's very little the frog can do, even if he starts burrowing, to uproot it. He doesn't necessarily need a hiding place on land, but it certainly makes it look a little nicer. As I may or may not have mentioned previously, adults of this species will eat almost anything you offer them. That includes fingers, but primarily it means large insects and frozen thawed rodents. So before we finish off this video, here's a clip of my big boy Lrrr eating his first meal in his brand new setup. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't be afraid to leave a like. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. I try to get back to as many as possible. If this is your first time watching and you'd like to see more reptile and amphibian related content in the future, don't be afraid to subscribe. And if you're already subscribed and want to make sure you don't miss out on my content in the future, hit the notification button.